Hey everyone, we're going to be making a spherical texture today. It's pretty simple, takes a bit of time, but more importantly you can do it with all free software. And I'm going to demonstrate this by making an orange texture. It could be anything you want, like a baseball or watermelon or whatever, anything that has to be mapped to a sphere. And I'm going to show you how to do that and make it look good. So, the best kind of texture to start with is good old orange peel. I don't think it's any mystery how I got this. I ate an orange and threw the peel in a scanner, and this is what we got. So I'm going to have to split this up into a few videos. This first one, by the end of it, we're going to have this orange converted to a square seamless texture, which we're going to use in the next video to do some cool stuff. So, the first software you're going to need is GIMP. We're going to open this up in GIMP, and we're going to do some cropping. And we see there's two distinct halves, and I want to get a rectangular section from this half and a rectangular section from this half. We're going to stick them together to make a square. And to maximize the amount I can get in a rectangle, I'm going to have to rotate this bottom section because it's kind of off kilter. So the first thing we're going to do is duplicate this layer, and then we're going to rotate this layer like so. Hit rotate. It'll take a little bit of time. This is a very large image. You can see the dimensions up there. It's about 5,000 by 5,000. Bigger is always better. You can always reduce quality afterwards. Okay, let's start with the first one, and we're going to grab rectangular selection and grab a rectangular area. We can see at the status bar at the bottom the exact area I have selected, and it looks like I can get about 3,000 by 1,500. So let's zoom in here. And I want nice round numbers like 3,000 and 1,500, so I know that is exactly half of a square. Makes sense. There we go. Let's move that around to make sure we're not getting any of the edges. Perfect. Let's do a crop on that. We'll do a layer, crop to selection. Whoops, I cropped the wrong one. This layer, crop to selection. That's half of our square. That looks pretty good. So we're gonna leave that for now and do the same thing over here. And we've got our same selection area, so we're just gonna use that for this so we know it's the exact same size. That's a little bit tight, but I think it'll be okay. Let's grab that layer and do the same thing. Crop to selection. Now we've got our two halves, which we're going to stick together. We're going to grab this layer and just move it around. And yes, there's going to be a seam, but we're going to take care of that in a second. That looks good. We'll just select none, grab our top layer, and right click on it and say merge down. So now let's combine those two layers into one, and because it's one layer, we can auto crop the image, and we are left with a nice square. And you can already see how this is going to be working. We just got to get rid of this seam here. And we're going to get rid of the seam by using the heal tool. You can also use the clone tool. It's a lot faster, but as you see, if you drag along there, it kind of works, but then you have this fairly hard edge. Like when you zoom out, you can clearly see there's a transition from the light peel to the dark peel. And the heal tool doesn't just sample the color, it also samples the brightness and the saturation and stuff like that. So this works way better. It's also way slower though, so look at that. You can't even tell that there used to be a seam there. This is a magic tool that, believe it or not, GIMP didn't have until fairly late into its development cycle. And it was the one thing that Photoshop had over GIMP, but not anymore. Although I'm sure Photoshop is way more optimized and faster than this. But hey, it's getting the job done. Just do a control click to place the origin. Wow, and it is as choppy as it looks. This isn't just some video artifacts. Let's do that one more time. So this will take care of the seam between the two, so it'll essentially be a nice square orange peel texture. Now, after this, we're going to have to make the whole thing seamless. That is, if we tiled it, we wouldn't notice any seams. And GIMP has a very nice feature that does this in basically one click, and I've never had a problem with it. Come on. Awesome, there we go. Take a look at that. That is professional, if I do say so myself. Before we do anything else though, I have noticed some things like these darker areas. There were some dimples and imperfections in the skin. The imperfections you see here, like these dried out bits, that's actually good. My experience tells me that this is actually beneficial to us, because the more, well, real nature isn't perfect. So we want imperfections like this. But because this is going to be tiled, obvious things like these dark spots are going to be tiled, and then it's going to be obvious that this orange has these two dimples on it on every side, which is kind of weird. So for this, I'm going to grab the clone tool, and we're going to just get rid of these areas quick. Just like that. Yep, that looks good. And you'll notice this is where near the edge of the peel was, and I'm not going to worry about that because I think that's going to be cleaned up in the seamless filter. So we're going to grab filter, map, make seamless. Just like that, we now have a seamless orange peel texture. And you can zoom in and see that it looks really, really good. There's a little bit of blurring, but really, for our purposes, this looks quite excellent. And just to prove that it is indeed seamless, we're going to tile it. Believe it or not, this is where the texture ends and begins. So that is the corner, and there should be part of the next tile here and here and there, and we can say that it is perfectly seamless. So let's close that window it opened. That's where I'm going to leave this video. In the next one, we're going to actually do what's called a vertical cross, so stay tuned for that.